right, welcome in everyone. Welcome in. We are going to be playing the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles today, and hopefully we are going to be finishing it. So I keep saying that this is like at least the third stream where I have said we're probably going to finish it today, because it always seems like we're right there at the cusp of the case. Like, we have identified who the Reaper of the Bailey is. We have pretty much proven that Van Zeeks wasn't responsible for anything, although Kazuma won't let it go. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting seeing how this plays out. I am super curious to see what we're going to discover today. So let's go ahead and hop in and see what today's adventures will lead us. All right. Okay. Will the new witnesses state their names and occupations for the court, please? Alright, Barry Caden, Governor of Barclay Prison. He's gotta be dramatic. Everyone calls me Gossip. I sell jaunty... your other persona, if you don't mind. Oh, I do beg your pardon, of course. We've got to have him be the emo version. My name is Daily Vigil. I used to be the chief warder at Barclay Prison. The reason you've been summoned here to court today is to testify about the jailbreak of the so-called professor 10 years ago. Look, the professor, we've already been through all that before a decade ago. And the conclusion was that there wasn't anything untoward happened. A convict escaped from your prisoner, Governor? Hardly what you'd call nothing untoward? Well... The convict's death certificate was somehow falsified after he was allegedly executed, and he escaped the prison inside his own coffin. A plan of that complexity could never have been carried out without the help of somebody of influence inside the prison. Governor Caden, don't imagine that the passage of time will afford you any protection. If it turns out that you were involved in the plot to break Mr. Oshogi out of your prison, then of course, the consequences will be very serious. In all likelihood, a capital punishment. God, hold on there, laddie. Witness, Governor Caden. Aye, sir. You have a critical role to play in the public safety of our country, a great responsibility to shoulder. The significance of your testimony in court cannot be understated. Therefore, think carefully before you speak. Oh boy. And Prosecutor Oshogi, if you threaten the witness again, you will be held in contempt of court. Oh man, he doesn't like anybody here, but I guess it makes sense since we're accusing him of, like, high treason or whatever. My apologies, my lord. There's no disputing the fact that an intricate jailbreak plot was enacted 10 years ago. Clearly, you were both involved in some way. So you will testify before the court now and explain exactly what took place. Very well. Let the witnesses give their formal testimony. Tell the court everything you know of the plot to break Oshogi out of Barclay 10 years ago. Oh boy. What are we gonna see? The jailbreak plot. It was late. The Japanese jock was found guilty. The directive came from the prosecutor's office. I signed the convict to the chief warder vigil here, and the plan to put into action behind the scenes. I was responsible for Oshogi right up until the night of his execution, but I knew nothing of any plot. I did not ken if there were some negotiations between the convict and the prosecutor's office. All I did was carry out my duty for Her Majesty's Great British Empire. That's all he did. A directive from the prosecutor's office. Are you saying that was the jailbreak plot? Aye, that's right. sent it? Who authorized the plan? I really don't know. I did not ken that. He doesn't know. You're saying you don't know? Listen, there was not a thing about the professor case that was not unusual in some way. I did not ask any questions. I just did what I was told to do. More than that, I could not tell ya. I see. But if the jailbreak plan originated from the prosecutor's office, then one thing is very clear. As suspected, there were clandestine dealings going on between Mr. Ashogi and that office. Oh boy. The jailbreak was promised in exchange for Mr. Ashogi admitting to crimes he didn't commit. That makes me wonder, who was the professor? I don't know. That, counsel, is nothing more than speculation on your part. I mean, yeah, but... So, let me ask the defense. Oh, yes, my lord? I fail to see how these witnesses have any more pertinent information here. Do you intend to assert your right to a cross-examination? Yeah, absolutely. I have no intention of squandering a single opportunity, my lord. Of course we don't. It seems all you Japanese are fiercely tenacious, of course. Very well, proceed, counsel. Oh boy. So we have to figure this out. The jailbreak plot. It was the day that Japanese jock was found guilty. The directive came from the prosecutor's office. Okay, let's find out about that. And you say you don't know who actually issued the directive. Alright, that's right. All I can be sure of is that it was official. Okay, that makes sense. But if it was from the prosecutor's office, that narrows down who could have issued it straight away. And it wasn't me. I cannot say with certainty that it did originate from the prosecutor's office. What? I mean, didn't he just say that? There's no telling where it started. There's a fair chance it came from higher up the ladder. Basically, I cannot give you any indication of who was behind it. You can't be serious. All we can say for sure is that the order must have come from somebody in authority, I suppose. The likes of us on the ground, as it were, did not bother with idle speculation. We just get the job done. I mean, I guess that's true. I assigned the convict to the chief ward of Vigil, put the plan into action behind the scenes. Hold it! So, Mr. Vigil, you didn't know anything about it at all? That's right. My only role in the scheme was as a scapegoat. That's right, isn't it, Governor? He feels bad about it after all these years. Some poor beggar had to take the rap for it. Oh, we ruined it. You ruined his life with that. All right, then. Who else did know about the plan? I've not the first idea, laddie. My part in the whole business was basically just dealing with the aftermath. But I would not be surprised if there were other folk in the prison service who had been given similar orders. So you don't know who else was involved? Aye, that's right. All I can tell you is that the night it actually happened, the person at the reins was Dr. Stevens. Do we know that name? Dr. Courtney Stevens. Oh, Dr. Side, that's right. As she's known now. Okay. Why did I have to get caught up in such a terrible business? Oh boy. I was responsible for Ashogi right up until the night of his execution, but I knew nothing of any plot. Hold it! Did you not notice anything unusual happening in the lead up to that night? Oh, everything was unusual, exception after exception. After all, it was the professor. The man had terrorized the country as never before with his crimes. In order to hide his identity, he was forced to wear an iron mask over his head. Hideous treatment. The fellow was surprisingly docile for someone who'd taken the lives of 5 of the country's nobles. Being the chief warder, I was the only person permitted to approach his cell. I can still hardly believe that I was duped by my own country. I believe you jumped from the window of the governor's office when the jailbreak was blamed on you, didn't you? Caden's feeling bad. Lost, Vigil. I cannot apologize enough. No, Governor, I don't believe you can. It won't change what's happened. So much stuff, so much drama. And what else can you tell us about the situation, Governor Caden? Oh boy. I do not ken if there were negotiations between the convict and the prosecutor's office. Hold it! But you've already acknowledged that orders came from the prosecutor's office to arrange for the man's escape. There must have been some sort of negotiation, is the only explanation. Aye, well, be that as it may, I do not care nothing about that. The witness stand is no place for telling what you don't know for sure. I ken that much, I do. Then I presume you also know this. Not telling what you do know is a criminal offense. It is. So you were just following orders, is that it? I am afraid that won't absolve you of guilt here. A man was still killed illegally, even if he was a condemned criminal. You may very well be found complicit in murder, Governor. Oh boy. So that's what it's to be, is it? Even with the threat of conviction, you won't break your silence. We're gonna have to present some kind of evidence to him, I think. All I did was carry out my duty for Her Majesty's Great British Empire. Hold it! Did you carry out the plan in its entirety? I did everything I could at the time. He didn't get the papers, though. As you know, Kitchen Oshogi was shot dead in Lowgate Cemetery after the escape. Tell me, was that part of the plan too? My instructions were to do what getting the joke out of the jail and nothing more. I cannot tell you anything about what happened after that. Only, personally, I believe his death was the last part of the plan. Hello? Are you okay, Vigil? Mr. Vigil, is something wrong? He's like very dramatic here. Yes, sir. What can I do for you, sir? He's saluting now? What is it? Some sort of Barclay convention? What is going on here? What Governor Caden was just saying seemed to upset you. Did it bring something to mind, perhaps? Oh boy. What's he gonna say? For the last 10 years, I've completely blotted out the memories of that time from my mind. I was betrayed by my superiors in the name of my country. Yes, he was. Just as my father was betrayed, it seems. There was a whole lot of betrayal going on. But you see, thinking back now, I really can't imagine that the shooting of Mr. Shogi in the cemetery was ever part of the plan. What makes you think that? Well, it just doesn't make sense, does it? To make the man admit to crimes he didn't commit with the promise of a jailbreak, only to kill him in the end. That's treachery of the worst kind. But the point is, if the intention was always to betray him, why would there be any need for all the chicaneries of an escape? That's true. Yes, that's quite true. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. If whoever negotiated with a shogi never intended to keep his or her end of the bargain, it would have been far simpler just to let the man be executed in prison, as dictated by his sentence. It all happened in that vast chamber of secrets that is Barclay, behind the high prison walls. I suppose nobody knows what really went on in the execution room now. Yes, it's an unsettling mystery, certainly. He knows. This guy knows. 100%. Truth be told, there is a wee matter that never quite made sense to me. Oh, do tell. If you believe there was some kind of negotiation behind the jailbreak between a shogi and a body at the top, it does not quite add up, does it? Does it? Governor Caden, I must insist you explain these doubts that you have by amending your formal testimony. Gods, go on then. Oh, that look from Stronghart, man. He's like, you will die in a fire now. All his secrets are getting uncovered. It seems to me that the Japanese fellow did not have nothing to bargain with. Hold it! But did he? Admitting to the crimes, that was what he had to bargain with, surely. I cannot see that myself. After all, did the prosecution not have conclusive evidence against the Carly, eh? I mean, that's true. This, you mean, discovered during the final victim's autopsy. There's every possibility this conclusive evidence was fabricated by Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office.
Objection!
Possibilities are all very well, but nothing has been proven. You can holler about misconduct in the trial 10 years ago all you like. But if you can't establish that it happened with hard evidence, no one's going to listen. Aye, that's right. So what I'm saying is, the convict had nothing he could use for any kind of bargaining at all. The witness makes an astute point. Logically, it would seem no negotiation could have taken place. I don't know about that. And yet the plan to break the man out of prison was definitely put into practice. So he must have been armed with something that gave him an angle to negotiate. We've got something in our evidence that says that. So Ashogi-san agreed to confess to crimes because he was assured he'd be broken out of prison later. I really don't think that Kazuma-sama's father would have engaged in such negotiations. And perhaps something compelled him to agree. What a terrible thing, using the law to legitimize such underhand dealings with a desperate man, only to double-cross him in the end. It's quite the opposite of justice. Indeed it is. I can't help feeling there's something about this apparent negotiation that doesn't quite add up. Something doesn't quite add up, Mr. Naruhodo? No, it doesn't, but I can't quite put my finger on what yet. Well, in that case, we must keep digging until we identify the problem. Alright, so let's look at our evidence and see what we've got, right? I know we had something in here. Let's see. This is our introduction letter, dismissal. Let's look at this. Chief ordered Daily Vigil is relieved of his post with immediate effect for having violated Clause 132 of Her Majesty's Code of Conduct for prisons. All rights to redundancy pay and other financial benefits are fully revoked. Aiding and abetting the escape from this prison of convict just prior to his execution. Details of this escape are still being investigated. Full cooperation with inquiries will be expected. Additional notes indications are that the jailbreak plot was conceived prior to the convict's incarceration. It is believed the convict engaged in some form of negotiation with prison staff in order to secure assistance. Full disclosure of information regarding these negotiations will be demanded. Okay. What else do we have? We have the Shogi papers. Is there anything on that, I wonder? Let's see. It's these. What's here? I, Genshin Ashogi, hereby request that upon my death, any and all material possessions and wealth belonging to me in London be delivered to my son, Kazuma Ashogi, in the Empire of Japan. It is with deep sadness that I accept my fate in this foreign land, in the knowledge that I will never see my homeland or family again, but I regret nothing about my chosen path. That doesn't really say what I think it should say, right? Like, it's not really got the right indication of it. But there was definitely something. We had something. Maybe it's not exactly what we thought. I don't know. Did we ever do anything with this? I don't think there was anything here. We haven't seen her since the very beginning. Letter of introduction on behalf. Oh yeah, that was on the back of the steamship thing. Dismissal notice. So I feel like it's gotta be something for the last sentence, right? We can at least go there. I think, because it's the one he amended. It seems to me that the Japanese fellow did not have nothing to bargain with. But maybe he did. Maybe he did. Could it possibly? I mean, okay. Even though the Ashogi papers don't say anything, the description of it says the last will and testament of Genshin Ashogi that Mr. Vigil claims disappeared after the convict's execution. Apparently, Mr. Ashogi described it as the only weapon I have left. So there's nothing in the papers themselves that seem to give any evidence, but it was described as his weapon. So let's try presenting that and see if that might help us.
Objection!
Confessing under oath to murders he didn't commit on a verbal assurance of later being broken out of prison. Genshin Ashogi was taking an incredibly risky gamble. Very true. There was nothing to stop the British breaking their word and executing him behind closed doors anyway. Under normal circumstances, no man would stake his life on a gentleman's agreement like that. Which means that Mr. Ashogi must have had a trump card. Something that guaranteed he wouldn't be betrayed. Some kind of weapon. However, the fellow couldn't possibly have had anything like that. But you know that he did, Governor. I mean, he went to his cell to search for it, right? The Ashogi papers, the name given to the last will and testament of Genshin Ashogi. It turns out that Mr. Ashogi was hiding his will in his cell at Barclay. Chief Warder Vigil caught him with it one day. You squeal, did you wee rat? Did I not tell you to keep that a secret? You can't touch me now. I mean, why would he keep your secret? You fired him. Mr. Vigil caught sight of that will through the bars of the convict cell. Mr. Ashogi pleaded with word. All right, then. What's on that paper? My last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now. A weapon? And after the convict had been killed following the elaborate pretense of the jailbreak, that document mysteriously disappeared, didn't it? Oh, well, yes. All the prison warders searched through the belongings of his cell, but that will was just nowhere to be found. As I understand it, an exhaustive search was made for the document, which became known as the Ashogi Papers. Governor Caden, I believe you ordered your prison staff to find it at all costs, didn't you? Would I be right in saying that you knew? You knew that the so-called Ashogi Papers had the potential to make great waves somehow? Jings, what the blazes are you blethering about? The will was found right and proper in the fellow's cell where I said it would be. But how can that be? We're in his cell. We all searched the place from the top to the bottom. I love how he's slapping the post and like hurting his hands. Well, you did not do a proper job, eh, you pilly-wally galoot? You can't criticize me now. I showed it to you afore, did I not, yon lawyer? Yes, you did. I have the document here. It's written in Japanese and reads, the last will and testament of Genshin Ashogi. Which means everything is as it should be? Not quite, my lord. You see, there's an undeniable inconsistency here. What? What inconsistency? Mr. Ashogi described this document as the only weapon he had left, but then he accepts his fate there. And yet this will contains nothing of significance at all. Exactly. Nothing that would have given the convict any leverage. Are you suggesting, my learned friend, that the last will and testament stored at Barclay Prison all these years is actually a fake? Yeah? That's what it sounds like to me, as has clearly been demonstrated already. What went on at Barclay Prison was far from above board. Exactly. That last vilification by the defense was an affront to the entire British legal system. This absurd notion of a weapon is something for which we have only the former Chief Warder's word. The man could quite easily be lying, or at the very least sorely mistaken. What? No, I definitely heard him say that. I swear. Clearly, we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to know exactly what happened with those so-called Ashogi papers. A waste of time. If the will was fake, where is the real document? Mr. Vigil was stabbed in the back by the judiciary 10 years ago. He lost everything, very nearly his own life. They're shocked? And now you're going to do it again. You're ready to brand him a liar and turn your back on him without even letting him defend himself. Exactly. It's clear that Barclay Prison is hiding something. It's clear the jailbreak was masterminded by somebody in the prosecutor's office. It's clear that some illicit negotiation took place. Is your lordship just going to gloss over the obvious facts? What did you say? We should hear more from the Chief Warder. Have him testify again. The trial must go on. The man's voice must be heard. It would seem that a few vocal here are utterly blind to the truth. Very well, then. Let the witness testify again. Tell the court precisely what you think you saw of the convict's last will and testament. Yes, sir, my lord. Oh boy, this is going to be great. The Ashogi papers. As the warder responsible for condemned convicts, I attended to Mr. Ashogi and kept watch over his cell. The night after he was found guilty in court, he was doing something with that will in his cell. We turned the cell inside out, looking for it after the execution, but to no avail. I only found out about the Ashogi papers when a directive came telling me to impound them. The document was in the folds of the fellow's robe that was left in his cell, a kimono, I think it's called. Definitely sounds planted. In his kimono? That's a lie. We searched every inch of the man's cell. We looked through all his clothes. It can't be true. Well, you're not satisfied with calling me a liar the once, eh, a wee waffinger? There's nothing you can do about it now. You don't hold any hold over me anymore. Other than the hold you like to take on my cravat, of course. Is that what you're going to do, is it? Are you going to give me a good shake again? Or are you too scared? He's just gonna take a hold there. Little and large. What a double act. We complied with Ashogi's will as far as was possible. All of his personal effects were delivered to his family home in Japan, as a courtesy to the homeland of the most notorious killer our country has ever seen. Except for there wasn't everything sent. There was something that wasn't sent, right? And we were much obliged. I can confirm that all my father's belongings arrived safely. Aye, and you cannot deny the handwriting is that of your old man, eh? Yes, there's no mistaking that it is my father's brushwork. Really? And this last will and testament was the man's last weapon, was it? I think we can safely assume that the convict was merely prattling, knowing that his end was nigh. Oh boy. So, counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, please. Oh man, here we go. Yes, my lord, time to cross-examine and see what inconsistencies we can come up with. Alright. As the warder responsible for condemned convicts, I attended to Mr. Ashogi and kept watch over his cell.
Hold it!
So, would that mean that you converse with Mr. Ashogi? Yes, certainly. Though there was precious little time before his execution was due. He was remarkably calm, considering his days were very much numbered. In all honesty, he really didn't strike one as a man capable of mass murder. Yet he confessed in full to the crimes. I know, that's why I felt compelled to ask him one day. I can still recall his reply. I'm guilty of the unforgivable crimes of ending another human's life, yes. That's not confessing to murder. But he was so tranquil and intelligent, it puts me in mind of an Eastern holy man. And what about the will you saw him with? What can you tell us about that? It was the beginning of all the drama. I remember it very well, yes. The night after he was found guilty in court, he was doing something with that will in his cell.
Hold it!
What was he doing? And he pleaded with you not to report him, didn't he? Yes, that's right. I like the vampire. Yeah, you did not tell me how blatant breach of trust that was. I could see that the man had a noble spirit. I found myself wanting to treat him accordingly. But according to what you told us 2 days ago, the convict had been strictly forbidden from having any writing materials whatsoever. Yes, you're quite right. Ah, so when exactly was the will penned? That was before the man was remanded in Barclay, obviously. Yes, at the prosecutor's office, under the supervision of the relevant authorities. I personally instructed Ashogi to make a will for the benefit of his family and his homeland. In that case, why was it found in his cell? What do you mean by that? Well, if it was penned at the prosecutor's office, you wouldn't have expected that it would remain there for safekeeping, surely. Yeah, I mean, it's curious. There doesn't seem to be any obvious explanation for why it was subsequently found in the convict's cell. Oh, well. The defense makes an astute point. Well, Governor. Have we caught you speechless? A prisoner, Governor, cannot be expected to ken the inner workings of the prosecutor's office. Way to, In that case, Lord Stronghart, perhaps you can shed some light on the manner. He was just shifting blame. I am unable to offer an explanation here and now. And he's not gonna answer, because that would incriminate him, right? I would have to consult with the notary responsible for the will at the time. Oh boy. The fact that my father's will was discovered in his cell is clearly inconsistent with what was expected. I want to know why. Another inexplicable mystery, then. Oh boy. Well, the thing about that will... We turned the cell inside out looking for it after the execution, but to no avail.
Hold it!
It was the governor who ordered the search for the will, as I understand it. Is that right? Yes, and when I reported back that we couldn't find it, he grabbed me by the cravat and yelled, "It cannot have disappeared completely," in my face. Aye, well, it's down to the governor to keep everybody working as hard as they should. So what I'm wondering, what if everybody has technically spoken the truth here. A will was pinned at the prosecutor's office and kept there. And that's the one that was later found. But Genshin somehow got writing material in his cell, and then he wrote a separate will. I'm wondering, I think the governor needs a wee taste of his own medicine, Mr. Naruto. The point is, it was clearly considered a very important document, wasn't it? But it proved impossible to find. That's right. Then before I knew it, it was in the morning paper. That blood-curdling article. The executed mass murderer who'd risen from the dead. Oh, you mean? The article based on Mr. Drebber's experience in Lowgate Cemetery. What if he put it in the mask? In the iron mask? Yes, that was it. The day after I'd read that news, I was summoned to the governor's office. And that's when the awful accusation was made. That you'd aided Genshin Ashogi to escape from the prison, resulting in your immediate dismissal. I'm afraid I really don't remember anything after that. Oh boy. As the governor of the prison, I had no choice. I could not have done anything else. I only found out about the Shogi papers when a directive came telling me to impound them. Hold it! And that directive came from the same source as the one instructing you about the jailbreak? Aye, from the top levels of the prosecutor's office. What name was on it? I did not ken afore, and I did not ken now. All I can tell you is that my orders were to do everything in my power to find that document. The directive said it had to be somewhere inside the fellow's cell. Document. Was that the wording? Document, not will? Aye, that's what it said. Am I clutching at straws here? I just wonder if it was really Genshin Ashogi's last will and testament that the sender of the directive was after. Maybe not. Continue with your testimony then, witness. The document was in the folds of the fellow's robes that was left in his cell, a kimono, I think it's called. Hold it! In Mr. Ashogi's kimono. Aye, the one he brought with him when he was locked up. Yes, he was permitted to have his personal effects with him during his incarceration, I understand. That's right, he was granted as much freedom as possible during the few days before his execution. Indeed, he had a number of items of personal significance, I remember. He was very reluctant to part with them. Some books, that kimono, his sword. His sword? Ohuma, the famous sword of the Ashogi clan. It bears the soul of my family. I don't doubt it, but I wasn't really getting at that. Forget it being the soul of the clan. Could the man have had a more obvious weapon? Have some respect, Ryunosuke. Respectful silence? The ward has carried firearms at all times, and the inmates have shackles around their ankles. He could not have hurt anybody with that thing. Still, he was allowed a sword, but no writing materials? Aye. He wrote that will before he came to stay with us at Barclay, you see. Dr. Mikotoba was asked to bring the necessary Japanese writing implements to the prosecutor's office. A scissori inkstone, black sumi ink, and some Hanshi rice paper, no doubt. I was present when he wrote it, but I'm sorry to say, the letters just look like a squirming mass of jet black earthworms to me. Oh boy, you're disturbed again?
Excuse me!
He just keeps getting the headaches, guys. Are you feeling faint, Mr. Vigil? Hello? Mr. Vigil? Sir, it was Scarlet, sir. What? Oh, I'm terribly sorry. He was writing in blood. Was he writing in blood? He cut his finger or something with the sword and wrote in blood? I didn't mean to blurt it out like that. That's what I'm thinking this is going. Less swaying and more explaining would be helpful. Is it something about the testimony we just heard? Have you recalled something of importance? Something of importance, possibly, or possibly not. I'm unable to tell which way he's leaning, I'm afraid. My lord, the defense asks that Mr. Vigil be permitted to supplement his testimony with this possibly or possibly not important detail. Permission granted. Go ahead, Mr. Vigil. Yes, it was Scarlet. As I remember, the document was written in scarlet ink, but perhaps I'm mistaken. Hold it! Scarlet, you say? Well, yes. I mean, I only caught sight of it for a brief moment, of course. But even by the dim light in the cell, I remember thinking that it was an unusual color. At the very least, I'm quite sure it wasn't black. Oh dear. Witness. Is that really what you saw? What, sir? Is something wrong, Lord Stronghart? I apologize. Continue. What do you make of that, Mr. Naruto? For Lord Stronghart to be so visibly shaken in that way? Och, dinna have you can plainly see the rat in there, and it's as black as the Earl of Hell's waistcoat. Well, yes, you're right. Mr. Vigil, I'd like to confirm one point with you. Did you actually see the content of the document that Mr. Ashogi was holding that night? Oh, well, no. I mean, there was no time. As soon as he noticed me there, he hid it behind his back. But it was definitely a will, was it? Yes, it was. That's what Mr. Ashogi told me. The court need waste no further time on this matter. We have the will in question in our possession. There is nothing more to add. I disagree. A will written in scarlet ink. What did Mr. Vigil really see Kazuma's father holding, I wonder? If you have an inkling, Mr. Naruto, you must present it to the court at once. Okay, so let's see. That testimony doesn't give much away. So this will really was penned by Kazuma-sama's father. I wondered what he could possibly have meant when he described it as a weapon. It's starting to sound very much like Mr. Ashogi actually had nothing. But the plan to break him out of jail went ahead, which means he must have had some bargaining power. He must have been hiding something. It's the only explanation that makes sense. It's starting to sound like Mr. Ashogi actually might have had something. Which is it, Mr. Naruto? I'm not sure, but I feel as though I'm on the brink of understanding all this. Let's listen to all the information again and see what more we can learn. We can't overlook even the smallest detail. Well, we know that detail is going to be the red ink, right? Absolutely. So let's get back there. Alright, so I think it's the last statement. Alright. As I remember it, the document was written in scarlet ink, but perhaps I'm mistaken. So let's look and see what we've got. Do we have anything written in scarlet ink? Like, the very first thing that comes to mind is the sword. Is there something on the sword? Can we draw this? What happens if we draw it? Kuruma, the great blade. It's such a thing of beauty. I want to gaze on it for hours. Is there anything we can see in there? I can't find anything out of place. What about the handle? Is there anything about this? Anything on the underside? I'm almost wondering, he had red ink though. So I'm not sure. Red ink. What could he have been writing? That's what I'm wondering. Let's see. Do we have anything with red writing on it? Obviously we have this, but this isn't going to help us because that was recent. There's no red on this. This was recent. This happened after, but even still, there's nothing on there. That doesn't matter. What about the autopsy report? This is Gregson, so that won't matter. None of this matters. Let's keep looking. The problem is we have two cases. We have Gregson's murder and his evidence mixed in with all of the evidence from 10 years ago. So we've got double stuff to look through. The Shogi papers, we already looked at that. Passport for Gregson. Clint's autopsy report. What's on this? We have his time of death. I don't think there's any... Wait a second. Recent scarlet ink stains visible on the little and ring fingers of the right hand, but no document in corresponding ink was found. Death from a single stab wound to the heart. Other superficial external wounds indicative of a duel. Scarlet ink. Vital evidence recovered from the victim's stomach. Okay, no internal trauma. Recent scarlet ink stains visible on the little end of his ring finger? That's... Okay, that's the only thing that we have found that's even remotely related to it, because nothing else is of that time period. Let's see if we can present that. I mean, maybe it's a long shot. The document was written in scarlet ink. Maybe it's the document from Clint. Clint wrote some document and gave it to Genshin. But why? This is gonna get interesting.
Objection!
Scarlet colored writing is what you said you thought you saw, Mr. Vigil. And I believe that's exactly what you did see. What? Ah, there's again. You're no evidence to say that. But do we? Have a look at this report. That's my brother's autopsy report. Yes, and there's something in here that's bothered me since I first read it. It states that scarlet-colored ink stains were noted on the fingers of the victim's right hand. Yes, so it does. Scarlet ink? Now, I'm not familiar with the habits of the British aristocracy, I freely admit, but I would hazard a guess that they don't all go around with ink stains on their fingertips, do they? Your wit is not appreciated. My brother was a well-bred and fastidious man. Should ink have sullied his fingertips, he would have cleaned them immediately. What is your point, counsel? My point is this. Whatever Lord Clint Van Zieks was writing in that unusually colored ink, it must have been directly before his death. Because he died before he had the opportunity to clean his hand. What? I remember something that troubled me at the time. At the scene, the lid of my brother's inkwell was open. But Clint was punctilious about such things. It seemed unusual. And no document pinned in the color of the ink that was in the inkwell was ever found. So the document had disappeared. Are you suggesting that the document my father had in his hand that night in his cell was the same document that Lord Clint Van Zieks was writing moments before his death? Exactly. Then it was. If Mr. Vigil's testimony is to be believed, it can only mean that, yes, Mr. Vigil. Sir, when you spotted Mr. Oshogi with the document in his cell, his precise words were as follows, were they not? All right, then, but what's on that paper? A last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now. What was on it? Something Clint wrote. A last will and testament. He's sweating bullets. If the conversation really did go as Mr. Vigil says, then what we now know completely changes the meaning of what Mr. Oshogi said. Really think. Mr. Vigil did indeed see the convict with the will, but it wasn't that of Genshin Oshogi. It was the last will and testament of Lord Clint Van Zieks. Oh, man. What? Oh, man. This is getting good. This is madness. My brother's last will and testament? That would mean that he had chosen to die. That is what it would mean, yes? No, impossible. That is utterly out of the question. Lord Van Zieks. Clint was pursuing the professor. It consumed him day and night. Whatever happened, he would never have abandoned his investigation before its conclusion. Never. He wouldn't rest until the job was done, until the killer was caught. The idea that he would willingly accept his own death, it's obscene.
Objection!
And yet, we can be sure that he was writing his will moments before his death. And the Genshin Oshogi came to be in possession of that document. So what could the will possibly have contained? Clearly something that couldn't be made public under any circumstances whatsoever. Because armed with that document, my father was able to negotiate with the judiciary for his life. It was something so damning that it prompted the powers that be to enact that daring jailbreak plot. Yes, there can be no question that the will contained information of the utmost secrecy. Information of the utmost secrecy? No, it couldn't be. So, Clint knew who the professor was, maybe? Was he the professor? Maybe. And then the human life that Genshin took was his own? Or was Clint's? Because he asked him to? I don't know. I've heard more than enough. Pursuing this notion of a phantom will nobody can attest to having seen serves absolutely no
Objection.
purpose. No, my lord. That's unacceptable. What did you say, counsel? The last will and testament that Genshin Oshogi had in his possession was that of Lord Clint Van Zieks. All the testimony and evidence presented to this court has logically led us to that as a possibility. We have a duty to pursue the line of reasoning to its conclusion. But with no possible means of knowing the contents of the document, there is no line of reasoning to pursue. I mean, sort of. Maybe. Is there a reason why Lord Clint Van Zieks, a man of high noble standing, would have chosen death? Because living would create dishonor. That could be a possibility. Information so secret, people in the judiciary would be willing to negotiate the jailbreak of a condemned killer. The only explanation that fits those facts is an unthinkable truth that turns absolutely everything on its head. But it's just too hideous. Mr. Naruto. However difficult the situation might become, you work with your client in pursuit of the truth. That's what you resolved to do when you entered the courtroom this morning, if I'm not mistaken.
Mrs. Otto?
So hold your head high and keep soldiering on.
So he knew something so secret. Yes, you're right. And the only thing we've experienced that is super secret is related to the professor case. So, 10 years ago, in his final moments, Lord Clint Van Zieks left behind a will. A will that Genshin Ashogi was able to use as a weapon to negotiate his escape from prison. In all probability, the details of the will were related to the professor case. Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
The defense's last statement is mere conjecture.
What are you getting at, man? Ryunosuke. So, as soon as these words come out of my mouth, there's no going back. I believe that the last will and testament of Lord Clint Van Zieks was in fact a report, an accusation, or a confession. If it was, okay, so let's think about it. If we think it was Lord Stronghart who was the professor, that would be an accusation. But then why would he then choose death? There's no reason why he would choose death at that point, because he had not done anything to shame himself. In the whole nobility honor thing, it would have to be something he had done. A report's not going to matter. He wouldn't choose death for a report, nor would he choose it for an accusation. It has to be a confession, right? It's the only thing that makes sense.
You can do this, Mr. Naruhodo.
I believe that what Lord Clint Van Zieks actually penned that day was a confession. A confession. Regarding the mass murderer known as the Professor and his true identity.
Objection!
Enough. Counsel. What are you saying? Do you even realize? A confession about the true identity of the Professor. That would mean... Yeah, Lord Van Zieks, I appreciate this must be hard to take in, but it's the only explanation that fits. His idolized brother, the killer that terrorized London a decade ago and became known as the Professor, the man believed to have murdered 5 members of the aristocracy, wasn't Genshin Ashogi at all. No, you can't be suggesting. It was in fact the man believed to have been the 5th victim. Lord Clint Van Zieks himself. Oh, we broke him. We've broken him. We have broken him.
It's finally open, is it? Pandora's box.
Oh no. The great Van Zieks family, they've been thoroughbreds of the British judiciary for years. And Lord Clint Van Zieks, he was a paragon of justice. But he was actually a mass murderer? A perpetrator of atrocities of the vilest nature? If the general public ever found out, law and order in this country... Oh my goodness. My goodness. My brother...
Oh, this is too awful. Poor Lord Van Zieks.
It does make sense. I wonder, though, did he never suspect?
Mr. Naruhodo?
Lord Barrick Van Zieks is a brilliant prosecutor. Is it conceivable that he didn't realize what his older brother really was? Order, order, order in the court. Lord Van Zieks? The professor made use of an enormous hound as his murder weapon. Tell me, did your brother own a dog?
Yes, he did. Balmung. He was a well-known hunting dog. People called him a giant. I don't believe this. When my brother would go hunting in the forest of the grounds behind the house, he always took Balmung. After Clint's death, the creature passed away too, almost as if he were following his master. He was a magnificent hunting dog, worthy of the jewel-studded collar around his neck.
A jewel-studded collar?
That's right. Though sadly, some years ago now, it was stolen by a thief who broke into the house one night.
A jewel-studded collar, stolen by a thief. It so happens that myself and my colleagues have come across such a collar during our time in London.
How could you?
There was an old emblem attached to the collar too, made of pure gold. It was topped with a small crown and bore an ornate capital letter B.
What? An emblem bearing the initial B?
Oh my, you know it?
And there was blood on the inside too.
It's the insignia,
Whoops. It's the insignia of the Baskerville family.
What? The Baskerville? Why is that name coming up now?
Baskerville is the family name of my late brother's widow. That pure gold emblem was an heirloom which Clint acquired upon their marriage.
Uh-huh.
There can be no doubt, then. The collar you've described was Balmung's.
The family insignia of Lord Clint Van Zeke's widow. There was a considerable amount of blood on the collar when we saw it. Since we know the dog was used for hunting, it could have been from his quarry, of course.
But it could have equally been from human prey.
So it's true then? Clint Van Zeke's really was the professor? Impossible! These Japanese are making it all up to exonerate their own. So in fact, the person responsible for these murders of nobles and royals was a noble himself, and that threatened to be an enormous scandal that would irrevocably destabilize British society.
My father knew that and was using it to negotiate his way out of the unjust charges brought against him. But at the very last hour, those he'd bargained with betrayed him, slaying him mercilessly on foreign soil.
Well, can you deny it, Lord Stronghart?
10 years have passed, and still now, the 6 million inhabitants of our great capital rest easy, believing that justice was done. That, though his anonymity remains, the diabolical murderer was caught and executed. Very well, then, you may have the truth.
It's finally time, guys. The truth. Oh, man.
Tell me, then. Tell me what Clint really was. Lord Clint Van Zeeks was too pure of heart. When he became a prosecutor and went in pursuit of the black roots of crime, he drove himself into a corner. Came to the uncomfortable realization that to fight the most fiendish of criminals requires one to become even more fiendish oneself. Clint.
We've broken Van Zeeks, guys. Oh, man.
The 19th century was a truly miraculous 100 years for Great Britain and indeed the whole world. New industry, new technology, and with the birth of the Metropolitan Police Service, new law and order.
But these dazzling new developments meant even deeper shadows were cast on society. Water sullied by factories, air thick with noxious fumes and crime, growing daily to fill the darkness. Lord Clint Van Zieks made it his mission to combat that darkness. But as time went on, it slowly ate at his soul, until eventually he was consumed. It's ironic, really, and somewhat surprising, that the truth has once again been unearthed by Japanese. Once again, what do you mean?
10 years ago, your father, Genshin Shogi, turned up at my office one night. The professor?
Yes, beyond all shadow of a doubt, you must issue a warrant to search his home at once.
Don't be absurd. The man comes from one of our country's most illustrious families. He's a paragon of justice here in the capital.
Yes, that's the point. That's why none of you British can see it. He's using his noble status as a diversion, whilst he commits these atrocious crimes behind the scenes.
Do you have evidence?
Nothing definitive as yet, but he keeps an enormous savage hound on the estate. We need the full support of the judiciary for this. We're up against a member of the aristocracy.
So a large family estate has a fierce guard dog. You should know that's commonplace here in Britain. I'm sorry, but I can't possibly put Scotland Yard onto this based on the tenuous accusation of a visiting student.
Oh boy.
So I turned down Ashogi's plea, and as a result, he took it upon himself to visit the Van Zieks mansion on his own. We can only imagine now what happened between the two men. Though we know the outcome, of course. Lord Clint Van Zieks perished.
I don't believe this.
So, in actual fact, Kazuma-sama's father did... He made the late Lord Van Zieks meet the same fate. He put a permanent end to the professor killings by taking the drastic measure of ending the perpetrator's life. So nobody gets to feel good about this ending. As soon as I hurried to the mansion. When I arrived, it was easy to grasp what had happened.
And what about the will?
Ashogi must have already taken it. Nothing of that nature was found at the scene. We had no idea of the existence of such a document at the time.
Oh boy. Everybody's quiet and thoughtful. The truth is revealed.
I was the only person who knew the true identity of the professor. So, I resolved to keep it a secret, and to guard the secret to the bitter end.
So you're admitting to it, that you were behind it all? It was you, then, who pinned the crimes on my father.
I did what needed to be done in order to protect the law and order of the British Empire. Even if that meant employing an unforgivable ruse. Then it was you who arranged this fabricated evidence. I ordered that detective to take care of it, whilst keeping the truth from him naturally.
Gregson?
Obviously, he opposed me at first.
Are you up there, Rocker? We can't do something like that.
There's no question that it was Ashogi who murdered Lord Van Zieks. The house staff had made statements that they saw the man running from the mansion that night.
Yes, well, I've no doubt it was that Japanese fella. But we haven't got a shred of conclusive evidence against the man. And worse than that, he doesn't keep a dog, so we're short of a murder weapon to boot.
And to a short on time, Gregson. We must put a stop to this man's rampage for the good of the country. So we'll use whatever means necessary. Do I make myself clear, detective?
Blimey. Oh, man.
So that night, 10 years ago, when I was attacked by those thugs in the back streets, and Genshin's ring was taken. That was him, wasn't it? That was Gregson and some hired help. Then the detective handed the stolen ring to Dr. Wilson, who feigned its discovery from the victim's stomach during that autopsy. And in the light of that decisive evidence, Mr. Ashogi was found guilty of the charges brought against him. However, behind the scenes, he had actually already struck a deal with his accusers, in which he agreed to silently accept the charges. But I just don't believe that part. As far as I knew the men, my father despised such underhand dealings. It was extremely easy to make him comply. You see, he had one crippling weakness. What weakness? Isn't it obvious? You, Kazuma Ashogi. Me? Oh boy. Perhaps you have no desire to return to your homeland, Ashogi? What? Though I hear you have a 14-year-old son, agree to cooperate and accept your guilt without contention, and you will see Japan and your son again. You scoundrel. Whether you choose wisely or not, it will be a closed trial by order of Her Majesty, so whatever rash claims you might make in court will have no trouble in stifling them. There's only one outcome for you, Ashogi, the gallows. Don't forget that I still have a weapon at my disposal. A document revealing a truth that I know you're desperate to keep hidden. Yes, it hadn't escaped my mind, which is the only reason I'm willing to bargain with you. I only want to protect this country's law and order, you understand? So, what's it to be, Ashogi? Kazuma. He did it all for Kazuma. He did it for me. And as I told him at the time, my motive was simply to protect Britain from the damage the truth would do. To protect the country's law and order at any cost. Oh, man.
Objection!
I've never dared to let myself even consider this possibility until now. But in the light of all this treachery, I have to ask. The mastermind behind the Reaper of the Bailey. Was it you, Lord Mail Stronghart? Oh boy. Rather a brilliant idea, wouldn't you say, Lord Beric Van Zeeks? Was it? That the spirit of your late brother, that paragon of justice, should return to reap justice for his sibling. Would there be a more appetizing tale for London's masses, I ask you? What brazen? I knew that you'd play the part to perfection, but your role really wasn't that of some embodiment of death. No, you were London's guardian angel. An angel with bloody hands? I think not. Those who had cooperated with me already were only too happy to participate in my plan. Inspector Gregson, Dr. Wilson. My minions worked tirelessly to ensure that the finger of guilt could never come to rest on you. It's all thanks to them that you were exalted as the demigod the Reaper became. I'm not sure he liked that idea, though. But Dr. Wilson left Britain 4 years ago when he was invited to work in Japan. That's right. So I had to employ the services of his young protege after that. Dr. Courtney Scythe. Okay. Dr. Scythe.
So, what with the execution of the professor and the subsequent reign of the Reaper of the Bailey, I've successfully safeguarded law and order in our mighty capital for the past decade. Okay, that is everything. Okay. They don't have anything to say? My lords, ladies, and gentlemen, I do hereby confess, it was I who sired the concept of the Reaper. Okay, I mean, we kind of guessed this, though. However, let me say in my defense, it was all for the preservation of law and order across the entire empire. Lord Stronghart did it? An unforgivable collection of crimes, but still, all those who died at the Reaper's hand were rotten to the core anyway. If it was all in aid of keeping London safe? There is no one left now who can reveal the precise truth of what happened 10 years ago. Therefore, this trial can go no further. Now, I would like to entreat all those present. Beyond these four walls, nobody need know the truth. Even Her Majesty must be protected from this. I trust you all appreciate the importance of my request. It is, of course, for the good of the country. Can he do this? Can the trial really end now? I have one last question. For the accused, Lord Venzeeks. What? Of course, I know that you're a highly accomplished prosecutor, so I find it hard to believe that you didn't have any doubts at all. That you never suspected your older brother. Yes, the same thoughts occurred to me. I mean, family can blind you, I guess. It was only once, but yes, I couldn't say that I never had my doubts. My brother's sense of justice was extremely strong. Perhaps too strong, I observed. At that time, there were members of the aristocracy who were bleeding the country dry for their own gain. And since they were nobles, they were untouchable. For my brother, it was a source of great turmoil. And coincidentally, at the same time, the professor began his terrifying reign. During the time of the professor's killings, my brother did not appear to be himself.
And that made you suspect?
Yes. But it was only once, not more.
Only once? Really?
Clint wasn't the culprit. That was my conclusion at the time. And I still believe that now.
Do you have any evidence to support that idea?
The third victim was the Lord Chief Justice at the time. It was he who had recognized my brother's potential and trained him as a prosecutor. No matter what the circumstances, it's unthinkable that my brother could have killed his friend and mentor. That will do. Neither Clint Venzeeks nor Genshin Ashogi still walk this earth. However much we debate this matter now, we cannot hope to reach a conclusion. But there are only two extant pieces of evidence from the time. The woebegone ring that acted as the incriminating evidence to condemn Genshin Ashogi, and the 3-page last will and testament pinned in black ink and left by the man. The wretched truth of what happened is exactly as I have explained.
I mean, there's his sword, right? He also had his sword with him. They made a point of pointing that out, but we couldn't find anything there. Unless it's shoved down into the hilt.
Later today, I will present myself at the Ministry of Justice for whatever sanction is deemed appropriate. That is all. Court is adjourned.
Uh-oh. Is it really?
Objection!
Oh, we're gonna object. Thank you, Kazuma. Me. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have made this 11th hour discovery. What discovery? My lord, I'm afraid I must insist the trial continues. I beg your pardon. As the court has been reminded today already, we must stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth. And to that end, one particular statement made by somebody in this courtroom moments ago revealed a very subtle contradiction. What contradiction? But all I did was ask the accused one simple question.
Well, it began with Lord Van Zieks and his recollection about his brother, but Lord Stronghart didn't permit the defendant to speak at length.
I merely pointed out that we can draw no further useful conclusions here. So where on earth is the contradiction? It was what Lord Stronghart said, right? One of them definitely just said something contradictory. It's time to identify who. It was... Can we see up in the history? I'm almost certain it was Lord Stronghart, right? Let's see. So let's see. There are only 2 pieces of evidence from the time. Stronghart said that, so he's the one that said it because we still have the sword. It was Lord Stronghart, I'm sure of it. Something he said was slightly off. Come on, Ryonosuke, think back over his words. Find the problem. Neither Clint Van Zieks nor Genshin Ashoki still walk this earth. However much we debate the matter now, we cannot hope to reach a conclusion. There are only 2 extant pieces of evidence from the time. The woebegone ring that acted as the incriminated evidence to condemn Genshin Ashoki, and the 3-page last will and testament pinned in black ink and left behind by the man. Kazuma has the sword. Lord Stronghart, would you care to explain? Explain what, Counsel? Among the statements you made just a few moments ago, something you said was inconsistent with a certain piece of evidence we have. Inconsistent? And whilst an inconsistency remains, the defense has a right to pursue an explanation. Ryonosuke, what? Let me warn you about the statements you are making, Counsel. They may very well prove fatal. You claim my words contained a contradiction. With what piece of evidence, I ask you? It's the sword. So we present this.
Take that!
Dear me, oh, this evidence makes it very clear indeed. But there is no contradiction with either the defendant or myself, naturally. No, the contradiction here lies squarely with you, Counsel. But it wasn't the sword? I have a distinct impression that permitting you to advocate for me was the mistake of my life. How was it not the sword? And don't you dare show your face again at my door once this trial is over. It's going to be very lonely around the Naruhodo dinner table in the future. I'm so confused. What? Not as long as I'm alive, Mr. Naruhodo. We need only think again to fix the situation. Oh my, Mr. Sato, yes, of course. I'm so confused. Well, okay, so what was the contradiction? I'm so confused. Okay, let's look at our evidence then. We'll look at our evidence and see what it is. I thought it was the sword, but maybe. It has to be. It's Lord Stronghart, right? Because... Let's look at the court record. Or actually, let's look at... Let's scroll up. Maybe someone else said something. What else do we have? The will, the woebegone ring. What else was said?
Didn't permit him to speak. What did Van Zeke say? Maybe it was him. Recollection about his brother? I'm not sure. Okay, let's look at the court record. Do we have some other piece of evidence besides that? Photograph, letter of introduction, dismissal. Okay, that's not related. I swear I thought the sword would be it. Oops, I didn't mean to click that. What else would it be? So, we do have the ring. We have... The autopsy report isn't really evidence, though, right? What else is there? I swear it's got to be about the evidence. So, let's go back to accusing Lord Stronghart, right? I'm sure of it. Oh, wait, but we do have other evidence, right? Let's see. Find the problem. Let's look at it again. Okay. Neither Clint Van Zeeks nor Genshin Ashoki still walk this earth. However much we debate this matter, we cannot hope to reach a conclusion. There are only 2 extant pieces of evidence from the time. The woebegone ring that acted as the incriminating evidence to condemn Genshin Ashoki, and the 3-page last will and testament pinned in black ink and left by the man. Lord Stronghart, would you care to explain? Okay. So let's skip to where we have to present the evidence. What was it? Alright. What evidence is it? So we have the ring. Apparently the sword was not it. Oops. The autopsy report, the passport, the Ashogi papers. Apparently, I mean, there's also the one, we don't have that though. Is that going to be good enough though? Let's see. What does this say again? I hereby request upon my death. Wait a second. Wait a second. 1, 2. Wait a second. Wait a second. 3-page last will and testament. We only have 2 pages? Wait, what?
Take that!
What? This here is the will left behind by Mr. Ashogi. The 2-paged will. What? Yet moments ago, your precise words were the 3-page last will and testament. Would it be that originally there was a 3rd page? Uh-oh. He let slip of the tongue? For a moment, I thought perhaps she'd identified something worthwhile, but it's a mere trifle, I see. A trifle? Governor Caden. What can I do for you, sir? You were present when the Japanese man penned his last will and testament. I was there for sure. I remember the black worms like scrawls to this day. And I'm quite certain, my lord, that there was a 3rd page at the time. What? Only the first 2 pages were the actual will, though. If I mind correct, the 3rd was a message to his lad back in Japan. For legal purposes, we required only his will. And we would not have wanted any uncomfortable words about Britain to get back to Japan, eh? So it was decided that the 3rd page oughtn't they be sent.
Objection!
Uh-huh. How dare you make that decision?
I had a right to know what it said, to hear my father's final words to me. The courtroom is no place for sentimentality, counsel. As it happens, I have the third page of the document with me here now. My father's message. It will be given to you at the end of these proceedings. It'll be too late once the trial is over. We need to know what it says now. Even the slightest thing may give us a vital clue. My lord, the defense calls for Genshin Ashogi's last words to his son to be read out loud before the court now. Your request is denied. The inevitably maudlin words can be of no consequence
Objection!
now. The prosecution agrees. The court should note the content of that message. Every possible piece of evidence must be thoroughly examined. Very well then, Governor Caden. You will read the third page of the document for all present together. Yes, sir. Only, I should point out, my lord, that I cannot actually read Wareham language. This beautiful handwriting. Shame on you, Barry. Who's this? Oh, okay, it's Mikatoba. Mikatoba shows up. If I could be of assistance here, I would be happy to translate the words into English for the court. Father! Oh boy. You're still here, are you, Dr. Mikatoba? Naturally, I considered myself a member of the judiciary, albeit a lowly one. But perhaps I should quietly withdraw after I've translated Genshin's message. Maybe? Your cooperation is much appreciated. Oh boy. Azuma, the truth is shrouded in darkness, a darkness only our clan's greatest sword can pierce. Mighty Kuruma, twist thy head and watch them fall, all thy mortal foes. That's the end of the message, it would seem. A haiku poem, twist thy head? Father, what is Kuruma? The name of the Ashogi clan's famous sword. A razor-sharp blade known to all, passed down for generations. It embodies the Japanese spirit. It's not known to me. It's the katana sword that was submitted as evidence earlier in these proceedings. The one worn by the prosecution counsel when he confronted Inspector Gregson. Okay. There's a third page. Interesting. All these procrastinations are beginning to try my patience. Adjournment of this court is long overdue. As the presiding judge, I have been accommodating as possible of the will of the courtroom. However, despite all that, no new information has come to light. It just did. In pursuit of justice, Lord Van Zieks tragically lost all sense of morality. When he murdered his former mentor, clearly he was already devoid of his normal faculties.
Objection!
How dare you? I refuse to believe that of my brother. Too much time has passed. We cannot ever hope to know more than we do now. Especially since the alleged will that he penned in his final moments appears to have been lost forever. Lord Stronghart, you appear to be in something of a hurry to wrap things up. I wonder why. Maybe there's still more secrets. We've heard you state time and again during these proceedings that everything you did was in the interest of protecting British law and order. And I stand by that. I'm wondering if there's even some more secrets. Like, this would not be the first time someone has confessed to a lesser crime to avoid getting convicted of the greater crime. So there's got to be more here. Without the Reaper, we could never have achieved the reduction in crime the capital has seen.
Objection!
What about Inspector Gregson, then? And Dr. Wilson. They were no criminals. You used them to achieve your ends, and then you had them killed.
However you dress it up, there was nothing fair or just about that.
Lord Stronghart, what exactly is it that you're hiding?
That's what I want to know.
Dr. Mikatoga,
Will you not quietly withdraw after the translation of your former associate's will?
in this courtroom, no argument carries weight unless it is supported by evidence. And it would seem that the defense has no more evidence to present.
Or do we?
In which case, I hereby order all discourse from these proceedings to be struck from the record.
This is my last chance.
Mr. Naruhodo,
I have to present some decisive evidence now, or it's all over. But can I? Well, we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? All right, so let's see. We are going to save this. Final. Because we are totally going to cliffhanger here, guys. It's going to be great. Back to the title. All right. So do we have evidence? Do we have any more evidence that we can present to the court? We are going to have to wait until next time to find out. And how will all of this wrap up once and for all? Is Lord Stronghart guilty? What is he hiding? Why is he so eager to end the trial? I'm so curious to see what secrets he's hiding, and hopefully we'll find them out in the next episode. So if you like this kind of content, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. If you want to watch live, we're on Twitch at twitch.tv/Liara27. I have my schedule posted in the about and in the description, and if you want to see which games we're playing each day, I post them on x.com/Liara27. And I hope you'll join me in the next one. Until then, guys, bye. All right, let's go ahead and we are going to call it for today, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. It was a lot of fun. This is just an epic case. It is just when you think you're at the end, you never get to the end quite enough. So, but it's gonna be epic. I feel pretty sure that next time we'll get the final conclusion. Now, I could have looked for the evidence because I feel like it's gonna be related to Kazuma's sword. But if the last epic case that we had is any indication, it's gonna be like another 45 minutes of wrap-up time. Plus the fact we still haven't called Sholmes into it with the little rabbit, because he said if everything is lost, call him in. So I feel like there's still a good bit more of stuff that we'll be discovering, and so I wanted to make sure that we didn't cut it short. So we will get all of that figured out next time. Right now, let us see who is streaming. Let us see. Why don't we... Okay, so we will raid Angelic Tryshort. She's playing Repo, which is cool. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for hanging out. We will be back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central. We're going to be playing some more Disco Elysium and Myst 4. So, if you haven't caught up on that series, you can check that out. But we will be doing some more of that tomorrow. And thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out. And I will see you guys tomorrow, 3 p.m. Central. Until then, bye, guys.